to ask just in case, but thank you so much for joining us. And just to jump into this, I'm Diane Silverman. I'm the executive director of Quorum, and we are just so grateful to have Tanya Van Court. She spoke to Hal before and graciously came back to speak to us today. Quick housekeeping, if you have any questions, put them in the chat function, and then we'll ask them as the time is appropriate. And if you have a technical problem, just do a direct message to me in the chat function. I'll do my best to help out. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the founder of Quorum, Meg Sullivan, who's going to moderate this session. And Meg is amazing, and we're just so grateful that she started our community. She's an Aspen Fellow and has done many amazing things. So without further ado, Meg, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Nice to see everybody. And Tanya, we're so thrilled to have you with us today. I think it's been, I can't remember how many years now it's been since the last time you spoke to us as a community, but a lot has happened since. So I'm just going to tell a little story. I had the privilege of meeting Tanya probably a decade ago. Tanya, does that sound about right?
I think it does.
Yeah. And I was just getting started with Quorum at the time. And she had decided to leave her big corporate job and light out in the entrepreneurial world, and had just put her initial business plan together and was running around trying to find funding and look for resources and support for her idea. So I feel very privileged because I've had the opportunity to kind of watch this whole progression in terms of what Tanya's been up to. She's the founder and CEO of Goal Setter, which I'm sure she'll talk about a little bit more in depth with us in a second. But the big jobs that she left, she worked in the media digital sort of space for big brands like Nickelodeon, Discovery Education, ESPN, folks like that, before deciding to kind of light out on her own. And I thought, Tanya, to kick us off, one of the things we might talk a little bit about is your background in general, which is what's led you to where you are today, maybe both personal and professional, a little bit of both. Do you mind sharing that with us? She's got a great story, so I think you'll enjoy it.
I don't mind at all. And it's funny because, Meg, even when I talk to venture capitalists in my endeavor to raise money for Goal Setter, they ask, tell me your founder story, or how did you get started? Yeah. And I always start with, well, my mother was an elementary school teacher in Oakland, California. And, their eyebrows are kind of raised like, what the heck does that have to do?
with anything.
With anything. But the truth of the matter is, it has everything to do with everything. So, my mom was an elementary school teacher. She was a single mom of 6 kids. And in spite of the fact that she had 6 kids, she would bring home more kids on the weekends. And, she just believed in closing gaps, no matter what those gaps were, or no matter what she had to do to close them. She believed in building bridges and closing gaps. And so that's my DNA, and probably even more strongly my DNA, because my mom died of a brain aneurysm when I was 6 years old. And so my brothers and sisters and I went to go live with my aunt. My aunt went from having 1 kid to 7 overnight. Talk about closing gaps and building bridges. And she was extraordinary. But, that early loss of my mother really, for me, cemented my own perspective on who I wanted to be and what attributes I wanted to remember from her in guiding my own footprints. And so, I ended up, education was very important to me because it was important to her. Went to Stanford, got a couple degrees in engineering, had no idea what I wanted to do, worked in corporate America, and worked at, great places and great brands. And then I was in my late 20s, and I was in Silicon Valley and had a good job and was a, leader in the company, and got a bunch of stock and stock options. and had no idea what to do with them because I came from this family of educators. And in spite of the fact that, educators are educators, most educators and most people in this country don't know anything about money. And so nobody in my family talked about money. So I get this stock and these stock options. And I think to myself, well, I guess the best thing for me to do is just leave them alone and don't touch them. I can't break them that way, right? And so I thought of them like, the other corporate benefits that we all get, like the gym benefit, where you're like, okay, I know I have that benefit. I'll get to it later. Well, that's not the right way to approach a bunch of stock that is appreciating in value. I don't know what to do with it, I'll get to it later was the wrong answer. And so that stock appreciated to about stock and stock options, about $1 million. And then in 2001, the big technology bubble burst.
Right.
And in a matter of hours, that $1 million was 20,000. I mean, it was like I had never seen anything like it. I thought I must be living in this alternate universe. And so I thought, well, that was really stupid, Tanya. But you can't turn back the hands of time. So no sense in crying over that spilled milk. What you can do is make sure that this never happens to your own kids. And so I vowed in that moment to make sure that my kids understood financial literacy in a way that I never had. And I didn't even have kids at the time, but fast forward to when I did have them. By the time my daughter was 8, about to turn 9, she said, Mommy, for my 9th birthday, I really only want 2 things. And I said, what's that? And she said, enough money to save for an investment account and a bike. And I said, I did it, right? I gave myself 2 pats on the back, one on the right side and one on the left side. I did. And then 2 seconds later, I thought, now, if I can get every kid in America to say that, I can change the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that goes back to my mother was an elementary school teacher in East Oakland, right? Because getting every kid in America to say that would mean closing these gaps and building these bridges that we have in America, and closing the gaps that we have and building the bridges that we need in order to make sure that every kid in America truly has a shot at the American dream and not just, the American promise. And so that's what we're doing.
And Tanya, maybe you could talk a little bit about what Goal Setter is exactly and how it works, because I think that would be useful for folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Goal Setter is a next generation banking platform created just for the next generation. So it's a savings platform created for kids and families. Kids can sign up to save for goals, big or small, short term or long term. Doesn't matter what they're saving for as long as they're saving. Because kids who have savings accounts in their name are 6 times more likely to go to college and 4 times more likely to own stocks by the time they're young adults. So we want every kid in America saving. So to facilitate that, we've got this great savings platform, but we also have the ability for family members and friends to gift goal cards instead of gift cards. So kids get real money towards real dreams in a real FDIC insured account, and they can save that money towards things that they care about instead of getting 10 different gift cards on birthdays and holidays that they just go and spend at $20 here and $20 there. I didn't even want anything from Amazon. And guess what? I just went and spent $20 at Amazon because I got this gift card. So we are today encouraging kids to be consumers, right? Instead of encouraging them, hey, here's $20 from 10 different relatives. That's $200. That's a lot of money. Save that towards something that matters. And so that's what we're doing on Goal Setter. But we also have financial education and financial literacy quizzes. They're mapped to national financial literacy standards, kindergarten through 12th grade. Every grade level, we have these amazing quizzes. But they're rooted in memes and GIFs from popular culture and social media influencers and YouTube personalities and hip hop stars. So we are meeting kids where they're at. And, when Beyonce says, can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills? We use that to explain Beyonce wouldn't need anyone to pay her bills if she would just save for an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of her expenses.
Yeah.
And kids love it and they're learning. And so they have a savings account. Oh, and one final thing. We offer a teen and tween debit card. And our teen and tween debit card is so that kids can start to understand the power and the foils of spending, right? But our teen and tween debit card is groundbreaking in the market because it comes with a rule called learn before you burn. So if you activate this rule as a parent on Sunday morning, your kid's debit card will automatically freeze if they haven't taken their financial literacy quiz for the week yet. And the minute they take that quiz, their card will unfreeze again. So those are all the capabilities. We just have, we just got back our net promoter score for any of you who are NPS heads and, love net promoter scores. Ours was a 73. Anything above 50 is considered excellent. Anything above 70 is considered world class. And so we are in the ranks of the USAAs and the Costco's of the world, those beloved brands, and are just really proud that we are bringing a world-class platform to kids and families across the country.
It's interesting to me to think about your corporate experience. Like, how did the corporate experience lead you to where you are on this entrepreneurial endeavor, or did it not even, or
Meg, let me tell you, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I was not this person who was like, oh, that light bulb could be better. I think I'll fix it and be an entrepreneur. Like, that was not me. I had a great corporate career doing interesting things and fun things. I literally, though, in that moment where my daughter said, I want an investment account, I thought to myself, well, if not me, then who? Right? If I don't bring this to the world and to little girls like my daughter, and, I live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and all of the kids here and the kids across America who aren't learning financial education today, if I don't bring it to them, then who will? And I got to tell you, I kind of think that no one else would, right? Our country has a whole host of financial technology companies, 99% of which are not run by women, 99% of which are not run by moms, 99% of which are not run by people of color, 99% of which are not run by people with an educational background or a media background, right? I had all of these skills and all of these things that my life had prepared me with that I've poured into this app. And the majority of people across the country who are getting funded to do fintech work to bring new financial services to kids or families or adults, they don't have my background. And I say that from the sense of, this lens matters. And as women, our lenses matter. Who's going to think about turning off a debit card if you haven't taken your financial literacy quiz yet, but a mom?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, like, for sure. Yeah.
The mom is going to think of that. And so what we bring to the world is different and unique and special and important. And so I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but I knew that the world needed what I could bring in this space. And it has been a hard slog. Meg, how hard it has been.
I know.
Many times I have wanted to say, I give up, just give me that corporate job and that corporate paycheck. But I got to tell you, like, if I weren't in this space, no one would be teaching your kids financial education. We've got competitors in this space. By the way, we've raised $6 million in the past 5 years. Now, you guys can applaud and think that sounds like a lot of money until I tell you that our competitors have raised $350 million in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And they don't have any financial education or financial literacy as a part of their platform.
As a part of their platform. I was going to ask you about that. I think what you're doing is pretty unique in terms of what's out there at the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's unique, and it's waking up the world in a way that the world would not be awakened if we weren't here, because it's forcing the world to have the conversation, right? Like, why are we the only ones who have financial education? I've only gotten $6 million, and yet I've built out a robust platform with a 73 NPS score, financial literacy quizzes for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and for parents too, right? We're forcing that conversation about, why aren't we doing this as America? Why aren't we doing it differently? And so, yeah, it's really important that we're here.
Yeah, I agree. That makes me think a little bit about one of the things I was going to ask you was sort of this whole entrepreneurial experience. What would you say to women who might be interested in dabbling in that space?
Yeah. So I would say,
or are dabbling and just want to share your experience, Yeah.
I know. Look, it's hard. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's hard because what people don't realize are the downstream effects of the venture capital space not funding women, right? Let me tell you what the downstream effects are, right? Just imagine for a second that your boss says, hey, Meg, you're awesome. And so I want you to take this office over here to the right, and I'm going to give you 2 people to work for you. And I want you to go, create $100 million business with these 2 people. And I want you to do it super quickly. Do it in the next like 6 months. I'm going to come check back in with you in 6 months because I think you're so awesome. And then your boss takes one of the guys who works with you and puts him across the hallway from you and says, hey, Ted, I think you're awesome. So I'm going to give you these 98 people to work for you. I want you to create a $100 million business, and I'm going to give you $80 million to create the $100 million business. And you get access to our marketing resources. You get access to this, that, and the other. I'm going to check back with you in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're competing against. And so you know what that means? It means that Ted has enough money to go and hire a full-time marketer, a full-time copywriter, a full-time person who's responsible for operations. He's got a COO. He's got a banking provider. He's got all those things. And you know what you're doing? You're playing all those roles on television, right? I mean, you're doing like, now I've got to be the CEO and the CFO and the COO and the CMO because I don't have enough money to hire those people. So you're working constantly. You're sleeping 4 hours a night. You are, pitching constantly to venture capitalists who are saying, well, why don't you have as much traction as Ted across the hall? Does anyone realize you gave Ted $98 million and you gave me 2? What are you saying to me right now, right? Like you're constantly up against that frustration. And the truth of the matter is you're looking at yourself in the mirror like, is there something wrong with me? Because why do these people keep asking me these ridiculous questions, right? Like you just don't understand how this phenomenon exists in this world and everyone else is acting like it's normal and it's not normal, right?
Right.
So it's really hard and it's really frustrating. Now, with all of that being said, I think that the world is a little bit different now than it was 5 years ago when I started this. And there are more women-led VCs. There are more VCs in general that are like, oops, haven't invested in any women in the past 5 years. Guess I better get on that, right? That's happening more. There are more crowdfunding venture options. So great firms like Republic, where you can crowd fund your next raise. So there are more options than existed in the past 5 years. So all of that is to say, it's hard. It's the hardest job you'll ever have. Make sure that if you want to do something in the space, it's important to you and that you are really committed to it and believe in it because you cannot do this kind of work unless you're committed and you believe in it. And make sure that you can do it financially because there's already enough stress on you just in terms of the job itself. If you can't pay your mortgage to or your rent to, that's going to be, that will be the straw that broke the camel's back and may make you quit right when you're onto something or right before you're on the cusp of something great. So you've got to make sure that you've got that financial undergird in place for you to support you on this journey.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I know I've shared this with you, Tanya, like my biggest passion at the moment or obsession, I probably should call it obsession, is the fact that there's just not enough capital flowing to women and people of color. I'm just obsessed with it. And if we could change that equation, there would be big shifts because you've just made the exact argument for that reality. Because there are a lot of those businesses that are still doing well, decently, underfunded or undersupported, which is just shocking. Imagine the odds of of that. So if we had just reconsidered, and I do think there is some shift, it's probably just, it may not be fast enough. So I was curiously going to ask you how much of a shift you're starting to see really, truly. I mean, in theory, you've got the double interest point in, woman and a woman of color. So in theory, you should be the ticket everybody wants to put money behind, but that's easier said than done. Yeah.
It is. I mean, listen, I agree with you. The shift isn't coming fast enough. And I got to tell you, a big part of the shift is talk. It's talk, not action. And there was just an article that came out that talked about even, in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and so many corporations pledging these big, large amounts of money. Well, how much of that money actually gets deployed? It's the same. It's the same thing in the venture capital space. Everyone's like, oh, yes, of course I want to invest in, women and I want to invest in people of color. but how much of that is actually happening, right? So, so yes, we are seeing more interest. I will tell you, we were trying to raise money for 9 months before George Floyd was murdered. Nothing. And actually, before that happened, the group that stood up and raised their hand and said, we are going to lead you around and we are going to make sure you get funding by hook or by crook, we're going to figure it out, was Astia, a women-led investment group. And so no one else would write us a check but Astia. And so Astia said, we're going to lead this round. George Floyd was murdered. After George Floyd was murdered, there were several prominent African Americans that said, we're supporting you, Tanya, because we know that closing the wealth gap is a really important part of equity in this. And so Kevin Durant, the NBA player, invested in us, and Chris Paul invested in us, and Robert F. Smith, the billionaire and chairman of Vista Equity, invested in us. And then guess what? Lots of corporations then started to invest in us when they saw that level of support. And so we got funding from several large banks. We got funding from MasterCard, from Northwestern Mutual Ventures. So that was fantastic. They all said, we believe in equity and we're going to put, our money where our mouths are. And so that was fantastic to see. And it was the first time we had seen it in the history of me, being in these shoes.
Right.
So I do think that some things are changing for women. I think that some things are changing for people of color. But, every time we look back at those statistics, Meg, this, we're like, it's still.
Oh, I know. It's like, and certainly I fear so much around the pandemic being very hard on women and people of color, very hard. So that makes me worry even more about the uphill climb that's still there,
It is. It's absolutely an uphill climb. But I got to tell you, listen, this is the truth of the matter. If Harriet Tubman never went north,
right,
there would never have been anyone to guide the rest of those slaves north.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be a hard journey and a hard road for someone. And if we don't take that hard road and that hard journey, we're not going to have people on the other side who can be like you and say, I'm going to invest in this woman. I'm going to invest in this person of color. Yeah. We have to build wealth as women. We have to use our positions in corporations to say, hey, you know what? Those venture capitalists don't invest in other women, but I know this great woman-owned company. Let's do a B2B deal with her. Mm-hmm. Let's have our strategic investment group invest in her. We have to use our positions of power to, help the women who are entrepreneurs to make that trek north so that they can get on the other side of it and they can help more people and they can help more people and they can help more people. It's right. What this is about.
Yeah. Yeah. What, tell me, the startup process. So you've been at it how many years?
5.5 years. 6, I think.
6. Yeah. Okay. So there's obviously been some fabulous moments and some tough ones. Are there certain things that you would do differently now that you can look back and see this journey a bit?
For sure. Absolutely. So listen, the first thing that I will say is you got to know that you're going to have to do more with less. So you can't look around and say, oh, that's going to happen for me, because it's not. I mean, it's just, you're not going to get the same funding as other people. So you got to know, I got to do more with less. And don't fool yourself in the beginning, right? I fooled myself. I was like, I came from Nickelodeon. I launched this product, that product. I was at ESPN, first to launch a digital video streaming product in the cable industry. They'll see all of this and they'll want to fund me. No, they don't. They don't want to fund you. So that's the first thing. You got to
be real. Yeah.
You got to be real. I'm going to get less funding. What do I do with that less funding? And how do I, how can I be smart with it?
Yeah.
And so to that end, the second thing that I would say is you have to find a technical leader from day one if you are not the technical leader on the team. I am not a technical leader. I got these 2 degrees in engineering from Stanford, but they're not in computer science engineering. I do not know how to code. I could not code my way out of this room that I'm in right now. And so it's really important that you have a technical leader, and there's no supplant for that. I tried to go and get my product built overseas, waste of money. I then joined an accelerator program here in the US, and they were like, oh, you're wasting your money overseas getting your product built. You should outsource with my friends here, right in New York City. They'll rebuild your product and it'll be great. second waste of money, right?
Oh God. Yeah.
It
Right.
did not matter where you're outsourcing to. If you're outsourcing the development of your product, you're wasting your money. You need a technical leader on your
That's
team.
fascinating. Yeah.
You need to hire engineers on your team to develop that product from day one. You've just got to. And that's hard. It's hard when you are an early stage startup to find a technical person who wants to walk away from Google where they're making $190,000 a year or whatever it is and come and join your little idea startup, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so yes, maybe you can get your MVP, your minimally viable product, outsource that. And so you just have something that people can see that's working, that you do tests with and say, look, that people will really like this. But the truth of the matter is you really have to, from day one, start looking for that technical leader and that engineer.
What sounds like, so to apply it to almost any situation, it sounds like, Tanya, really understanding what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And so how do you buoy your business concept up with the experts you need beside yourself, right? I mean, that's
it. That's it. That's 100% right. But it's also, Meg, understanding what people will fund.
Yeah.
Nobody's funding you without that technical leader on board.
Yeah.
They're just
right.
not. Right? They already don't want to fund you if you're not a serial entrepreneur. So that's one check mark against you. If you're a solo founder, then they're like, oh, you're going to get tired. You can't do all this by yourself. So,
Right.
they want you
And
to
you
have a
probably
co-founder.
do get tired.
They're right. Unfortunately.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right. And then third, if you don't have a technical co-founder, they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to get tired and you don't have, the right technical expertise to build this product. So you really need that as well.
Tanya, go back a little bit to to Goal Setter itself and talk a little bit about who's your target audience in terms of who initiates the connection or becoming part of Goal Setter usually.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's usually the parent, it's usually the mom, but it can also be teens. So one of the really interesting things about Goal Setter is that, from the beginning, all of the VCs said, well, who are you going after? Who are you going after? Is it the teenage audience or is it, preschoolers? Who are you going after? And that question confused me as a mom because, Meg, you know this acutely well. I have a 15-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And so I was like, what do you mean, who am I going after? Like, all of these kids need to be on this platform.
Right.
They all need to have a savings account. As they get older, they need to have a debit card. They need financial education and financial literacy. Grandparents and aunts keep calling me asking, what should I get them for their birthday? I need an allowance platform. And I need all of that in one place. I need one thing that does those things and does it for a 5-year-old and does it for a 15-year-old. So why are you asking me who I'm going after? I'm a mom. I'm going after my whole family. And so we went out and asked moms, like, what do you want for your family? Do you want a teen and tween debit card platform, or do you want a savings platform for your whole family that also has a teen and tween debit card attached? Because teen and tween debit cards were the only thing that were getting funded in the market. And 75% of moms told us that they wanted a savings platform for their whole family that had the teen and tween debit card functionality attached. And so we're like, so why, VCs, do you guys keep funding these other guys who are just launching teen and tween debit card when, we're starting with kids? Here's an interesting stat: 0 to 5 years old on our platform, 13% of the kids are 0 to 5 years old. 6 to 12 years old, 43% of kids. And 13 to 20 years old, 43% of kids. And so we are finding kids in college who are using Goal Setter because their parents are like, easy way for me to send you money on a debit card, easy way for me to make sure you're taking those financial literacy quizzes and learning financial language. And so we really are a family app, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's great. And tell me, how much are you touching the communities that you think have been really underserved in the financial literacy space? I would tend to say everyone, but there's many communities that where, like you talked about your own situation, that was just never discussed,
Absolutely. We are absolutely touching communities that are underserved. And it's so beautiful to see. We get parents who say, I don't know this, this financial education that you're teaching my kid. And so I'm sitting down with my kid every Sunday and we're doing your financial education quizzes together, right? when we first started. It was funny. We had a user named Emma out in California. And I knew that Emma had one daughter. So Emma had this one like 5-year-old named Julia. And one day I saw on Emma's profile like 3 kids. And I was like, Emma, like, where did these 3 kids come from? And one of them was named Emma too. And I was like, you don't have a daughter named Emma. Your daughter's name is Julia. And so when I called Emma, she said, well, Tanya, I love Goal Setter so much in saving for my kids that I want to use it to save for my own goals too.
Hmm.
And that's when we opened up to make it a family platform, because we went and asked the parents on our platform, and 80% of them said they wanted to use Goal Setter to save for their own goals too. And so we really do believe that we are serving families who are in need. And it's not just the kids, it's the parents. Like, we are bringing in parents who are like, hey, this is a really fun and easy way for me to save for a family vacation, save for an emergency fund. I can take the financial education quizzes. We're reaching the whole family with a tool that America has never given them before.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I'm gonna, Tanya, as you know so well, because you've been a friend of Quorum for a long time. Our goal obviously is the advancement of women. That's what we focus on. And what we're focused on as a community is how do each one of us be responsible for taking action to further the advancement of women, further ourselves and each other and the communities kind of around where we have influence. I'm just wondering, obviously Goal Setter has the goal of broad financial literacy, but I'm just wondering, in your head right now at this stage and at the level of maturity that you have, what actions of impact are most important to you in this moment? That would be the first part of the question. And then maybe what you might recommend to all of us at Quorum would be things we might want to consider as we reflect on how we continue to take action and evolve and use our platforms, as you so brilliantly discussed before, is to remember our voice and our skills and our capabilities. What does that look like, and how do we leverage them?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say in terms of what do we need most and what's most impactful for us at Goal Setter is traction is most valuable and impactful for us. And traction for us, I've talked about the product of Goal Setter. What I haven't described is that we work with businesses and corporations in many ways. So number one is we offer Goal Setter as an employee benefit. And it makes so much sense because, we are in this time of financial crisis in our country, and there are employers around the country who are hearing from their employees, we want more help understanding our finances, undergirding our families with good financial health and financial literacy. And so employers who are focused on the family and really supporting the family, they are providing Goal Setter as an employee benefit to their employees, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, etc. Right? Here, you get to deploy Goal Setter to any kid in your life. So if there's anyone out there who works at a corporation where you think Goal Setter would be a great employee benefit, we're doing it for banks and financial institutions, but we're also doing it for, just large corporations or mid-sized corporations. So I think that's one way that we work with partners. A second thing that we are about to launch is a movement to get 1 million Black and brown kids to become investors. And so we are going to the Fortune 1000 CEOs and corporations across the country and saying, hey, how about you donate 1,000 shares to us? Because 1,000 times 1,000 Fortune 1000 companies is 1 million shares. And just imagine if we can turn these kids into owners when they're still kids, and so they can understand that they shouldn't just be consumers in this economy, they should be owners. That's real impact. So if anyone has a corporation or in a C-suite team that you say you can get us to, and they might be interested in gifting 1,000 shares to this movement, that would be great. And all of that is to say that the only way that Goal Setter has gotten to where we've gotten to, and I'm not kidding you, I mean this, is because of the help of people like the folks at Quorum. We could not raise money out of the gate. When we raised our first $1 million, 86% of that money came from Black people, brown people, and women. These were individuals who said, We don't care that the establishment will not support you. We will support you. So whether you are an angel investor in women-led companies, that's super important. Or if you're just serving as a champion for women-led companies in whatever environment you work in, right? It like you introducing me and this concept of a million Black and brown kids investing to your CEO and saying, I think this is something that we should support, gives me 20 times a better shot at getting that deal done than if I'm just sending your CEO a note off of LinkedIn, right?
Right.
We supporting each other is what is going to make this overall movement happen. Because for me, this is a movement. This is a movement about women-led businesses succeeding, investing in each other, promoting and helping and supporting each other. It is a movement about women supporting women. And that's the only way that we're going to see these numbers start to change. So I would just say, know that you are in your seat for a reason. And if you weren't in that seat, someone else would be in that seat. And I need you in that seat. I don't know I can't remember what that movie was, but it was, I need you on the wall, right? You're the one who I want on the wall when I'm coming to talk to your corporation, because I need advocates in every one of these organizations saying we should work with her. That's how we get traction. That's how we get revenue. That's how we get penetration. And that's how we then go and demonstrate to those venture capitalists when they say, well, what have you done lately? Well, here are all the things that we've done, and we are flying with wings because we have, the air and the fuel of all of those women who are supporting us.
That's great. Thank you for that. That gives us all, I'm sure, a lot to think about. I wanted to sort of open it up and see if there's questions or thoughts that everyone on the phone might want to share, or questions that you all might want to ask. You're welcome to just take yourself off of mute or throw it in the chat, whatever's easiest.
I'll jump in. Hi, Tanya. This is Patricia Roberts. We have spoken in the past in 2019, Gift of College and the 529 plans. I know we both said we'd get back to each other. Let's do it.
I love it, Patricia. Yes, yay!
I just went back to my emails. I'm like, I know you said you needed a little time, but we did have a good initial conversation. So let's continue that. I would love to. And
it sounds like there might be some cool partnerships going there or something. Yeah,
I mean,
right.
People need to save for college, and I've got to tell you, it is women and persons of color that are more encumbered than anyone,
yeah,
crushing student loan debt. So we've got to get beyond it. So I'd love to talk again. And I did want to ask you, have you seen any growth or impact in the unbanked or underbanked communities with your platform? Are you able to see any of movement there?
It's hard for us to, we don't really track that or have a way to track it, Patricia. But I will tell you that we have, our initiative. In February, we launched a movement to get 1 million Black and brown kids saving, right? Not investing yet. Now we are getting them investing too, but getting them saving. And we launched that movement in conjunction with the NBA Players Association. And it was called Drafted, as in
that's
being
cool.
Draft. And
Right.
so NBA players across the country drafted kids to get those kids goal setter savings accounts. And so Chris Paul started it off, and he drafted 100 kids in his hometown. And then he said, who's got next? And then he passed the ball to somebody else. And then they, drafted 100 kids. And then they said, who's got next, et cetera, et cetera. But I will tell you, Patricia, as a result of that movement, we have seen so much pickup in the Black community and the brown community. We see lots of our customers who are African American and Latino customers, because they are following what Chris Paul is doing. And just this past week, we had Russell Wilson and Sierra drop into a classroom because we have a partnership with the NFL Players Association called Dropping Jewels. And so Russell Wilson and Sierra dropped into not just a classroom, they dropped into a whole school in Seattle. They drafted the entire school to get goal setter savings accounts, and then they dropped jewels of financial literacy information and education that these kids could relate to. So all of that is to say, these partnerships have really begun to shine a light on us as, wow, there's a Black woman-owned fintech company in the space? Fantastic. I'm there. I'm signing up. Exactly. So we know that we are seeing, still, 31% of African Americans participate in the stock market as opposed to, roughly 61%. I think it may even be less. Sorry. I think it's 28% of African Americans participate in the stock market as opposed to 61% of white Americans. And so when we talk about, underserved, 70% of African American children who are in the middle class today are expected to fall out of the middle class by the time they're adults. So this financial education and financial literacy, this introducing people to the stock market, all of this that we're doing, it is critical. And so it's not just, quite frankly, the unbanked and underbanked. It is the average person who doesn't know or doesn't trust the stock market, right? It is the average person who doesn't know how to teach their kids about financial education. So that kid, even if you've made gains in your life, that kid is going to be taking 3 steps back instead of 5 steps forward. So we are seeing a lot of growth and activity there.
That's great. Any other questions? Yeah, Anne, there you go.
This is fantastically interesting, and your delivery is wonderful. Just so energetic. I can't get over it. I just want to ask you a question. Last week, I was in a sort of seminar lunch. Obviously, everybody sitting remotely outside, which is what we're all allowed to do still here, with 5 other professional women, and the conversation turned to finances. And believe me, they're all very, very accomplished and very successful and have been working for about 25 years each. So we're, that sort of 2 out of the 6 had no idea about their retirement plans and declared themselves incapable of even addressing the subject. One of whom was a really successful life coach now. I mean, what do you do when you come across this extraordinary phenomenon?
Anne, so, I love that you said that, because I give a talk to kids and parents whenever we are bringing on board a large group of kids, right? So this school, as an example, in Seattle with Russell and Sierra, we're going to do this talk with every kid in the school and with their parents as we onboard them to Goal Setter. And this talk is called Building Wealth, a 4-part blueprint inspired by Jay-Z. And and it really literally just meets everyone where they are, because what I say is, and first of all, I start the talk, I have someone introduce me, the person introduces me, and then I say, hola, me llamo Tanya y hoy vamos a hablar sobre el mundo de instrumentos financieros, incluyendo los IRAs y muchas cosas más, right? So, and then there's just kind of silence, and they're looking at me on Zoom like, what is going on here?
She knows what she's doing. Yeah, right.
But, exactly. And I say, you guys would think I were absolutely nuts if I were going to give this whole presentation in Spanish. Well, how many of you understood what I just said? That's what I start with. And none of them raise their hand, unless it's a largely Latino audience, and then I think something else, right? But none of them raise their hand. And I say, and you'd think I was absolutely nuts if I were going to give this whole presentation in Spanish, when none of you speak Spanish, right? And they say, yes. And I say, well, look, that's what America is doing to you every day. But America's not doing it in the language of French or Italian or Spanish. They're doing it in the language of money, which I would submit is even more important for you to understand than any foreign language or even English, right? Probably just as important for you to understand as English in order for you to be financially successful in this country. And now I'm going to tell you something else. And then I flip to a picture of myself and my mother. And I say, my mother was an elementary school educator and counselor in Oakland, California. And she was brilliant. She was a brilliant woman and very well regarded. But she didn't teach me anything about money because she didn't know anything about money. So let me tell you what I'm going to tell you now. If you don't know anything about money, or if your parents don't know anything about money, it doesn't mean they're not brilliant. It just means that no one ever taught them. So you've got to lose the shame around that, and don't feel like we're dumb or we're not capable or we're not people who ever will have money. You will. It's just somebody needs to teach you about money. And so that's what I'm going to do now, but we're not going to do it in these terms that I throw up on the screen, right? Because then I throw the money terms up on the screen to show them it's a different language. I'm not going to sit here and define these terms for you. I'm going to teach you by telling you stories. And I'm going to tell you stories because, listen, here's the thing. I can find kids who don't like science. I can find kids who don't like math. I can find kids who don't like English. You cannot find a kid in this country or any other country who doesn't like money. So why
That's hilarious.
is it that we cannot teach this topic that all kids like, right?
Yeah,
We
right.
just haven't done it. So, Anne, all of this, bringing it back to your question, right? For the past 50 years, no country has taught money. And so now we have these adults who don't know money, and they carry so much shame around not understanding it. And
Right.
as one of my friends says, you know, these financial terms, they're like barbed wire. They have barbed wire around them. And so when anyone talks to them about it, they feel shame, they feel dumb, they feel incapable and incompetent. And they just, you know, and it's almost the emperor who has no clothes, right? They want, you know, they want you to see them as this very capable, competent person who they are in their day job, but this is somehow making them feel less than. So they just don't even want to go there. And what we need to understand is these are two different conversations. You are a fantastic life coach. You are brilliant at that. Tanya could never give the kind of life coaching that you are giving, right? You have a domain that you are brilliant at. But we all have to develop this second language. And it's what we're telling kids, right? I don't care what you want to be in your day job. Your night job is to take the money from your day job and invest it.
Yeah.
It's to understand the language of money so that you don't go broke and live check to check by doing the wrong things with the money from your day job. So now let's work on your night job. And so, Anne, I think that's what we do. It's the acknowledgement that you are brilliant and you are amazing and no one ever taught you money. So let's teach you money, or get somebody who knows money into your world, who's reputable and reliable, so that, you know, you can do the right things with this money that you're making in your day job at night.
That's extraordinarily helpful, and I think so true, because it's very difficult to find that person when you're an adult. That person tends to be a financial advisor who understands the language of money, but talks the language of money that you've described.
Right.
And you can see people glazing over, they don't understand. And I think, and I didn't say this, but I thought, how can you be bored about your own money? What you're going to, you know, your retirement is 5 or 10 years. What?
Yeah.
How are you going to travel and do all this stuff?
It won't magically
It
happen.
bores you. It can't bore you. It's what, you know, it's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
It's-
say that, it was too English and polite, but.
Well, I do, you know.
I mean, I'm no great shakes, believe me, but it's been bothering me ever since.
Well, it's fascinating, Anne, that you even said that you had a conversation about finances, because women tend not to talk about finances.
That's right.
Right? I mean, Tanya, that's going to be your experience, right? You know, it certainly has been mine. It's very rare that women will engage in a conversation around or even what they're thinking or how they're thinking about, or ask a question or do all of that. They just end up running away from it. And I've been as guilty of it as the next, by the way, you know, so.
No, that's absolutely true. I think it only came about because two of us in the group are already with one foot in the not working so much camp. So I was quite interested in talking about actually the transition into not working full time.
Right.
Interested in as a subject.
Right.
Then started to look at what they intended to do with the time. Plenty of ideas about that.
Yeah. Right.
Flipped there. Well, you know, the other thing that I will say is that when you talk about the fact that the people who often talk about money are financial advisors, but they speak, you know, the money language and the boring money language, we have to find the financial advisors that are right for us, right? And a lot of times those are, if you're a woman, and let me just back up, and we got to find financial advisors who we're not afraid of sounding dumb in front of, right? Because if you're a woman and you're talking to this guy who's suited and booted and, you know, he's your financial advisor and you're like, oh, if I ask him these stupid questions, he's going to think I'm stupid. Like, we are so used to playing this role in corporate America where we're like, we have to know everything, otherwise we will be discounted, right? That we take that same tact when it comes to talking about our money with that financial advisor who's sitting across from the table. So I tell people all the time, you know, you cannot have a financial advisor who you are concerned about asking questions about your money. It's your money, as Ann said. So if you are, you know, nervous or insecure about asking questions of this person about your money, you got to find somebody who you feel more comfortable with. And so a lot of times for people of color, that's another person of color. A lot of times for women, that's another woman. You
Right.
have to find these people who, you know, can meet you where you are and speak your language and answer every question you have. I have a financial advisor. He's extraordinary. And he has taught me, the truth of the matter is he's taught me. He's been a teacher for me. He hasn't just, you know, gone and invested my money. He's the one who I call up and I say, hey, I'm about to talk on this panel, and they sent me the questions in advance, and here's one of the things that they want to know about. Can you help me to understand how I can better explain this answer to them? And he helps me to do that because he's a teacher. And so that's what we need to find, those financial advisors, and then we need to send them to all of our friends, right? That's what I do with this guy. I'm like, look, any friend I have, I got the right financial advisor for you. I'm sending him everywhere because he's a liberator, right? When you find the right person, they do liberate you because they're teaching you and not judging you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other questions that anyone has for? Was that Marta? Did you raise your hand? Yeah.
Hey, Tanya. So I used to be at Sesame Street in corporate sponsorship. Might have been close to the time you were there. And I started a financial literacy program. And they said that Sesame Street age children were too young to learn about money. And I said, no, I don't think so. If the money comes out of the cash machine and children just think that's how mom and dad get money, there's no concept of how you earn it and what work is and how to save it. And I tell you what, it's just such a stinker. I could not get traction. Marilyn, all these people are like, well, this is like 2002. And they're saying, that's, you know, it's just really not a thing. And I thought, you know, and I was raised that you don't talk about money. I didn't even know what a mutual fund, and I'm not stupid. I did not know what a mutual fund was until I was in college.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, no idea.
I agree. I didn't know till I was out of college, Marta.
Yeah, right. I was just going to say, you were ahead of the rest of us. I don't know.
Exactly.
So anyhow, I just think it's interesting. I don't think it's ever too early to have a conversation about money. Would you agree? Or what's your thought about that?
Marta, I wish that this conversation started 30 minutes earlier. My 5-year-old came to me while I was on my last Zoom and said, Mommy, I made up my bed and I made up Barbara's bed and I made up your bed. And I was like, oh, you did? And he said, yes. I said, I'm going to give you some money so you can save for something you want. And he literally did a dance. Mommy's going to give me some money. And then he like walked out the room and told his babysitter, Mommy's going to give me some money. No, it's not too early. He's 5 now. So 6 months ago, he had like just turned 5, maybe had been 4 and was 4 now that I think about it. And he said, Mommy, I want a helicopter. Can you buy it for me on your computer? And I said, no, but I can show you how much it costs on my computer. So we went to my computer and I said, it costs $39. And he said, well, how much money do I have? And I said, well, let's go count it. And so we counted it and I said, how much more do you need? And we went to his number chart and said, you need $5 more to get there. And so he said, well, what can I do to get $5? And I said, well, you can get some jobs around the house, go do this and go do that. I mean, so we set that conversation up early, right?
Yeah.
Like he knows now, don't ask Mommy for anything because she's going to say no. And she's going to tell you to go save for it yourself. And that's the problem. My best financial advice for parents is tell your kids no. That's my best financial advice. We say yes to everything. We say yes to everything. And then they're like, oh my gosh, the money comes out of the cash machine. Just like you said, Marta, oh my gosh, I can get anything I want whenever I want it. If you start telling your kids no from the time that they are old enough to understand I want something, that's when you tee up a conversation about money and saving and earning. And what do I need to do to get that? Because Mommy just says no. So there must be another way. So I'm going to follow this other way. I agree with you. And by the way, you made me realize something, Marta. What you were proposing at Sesame Street, it didn't get traction. And I realized when I first went to VCs and said, I'm going to launch a kids fintech company, They were like, yeah, whatever, go home, go home. I just realized something. They did that because we were women, right? And they think, oh, that's cute. That Marta and that Tanya, they just like this space because they care about kids. It's like looking at a business as a nonprofit as opposed to a business. They associate us with, oh, they just want to, do nice things for kids and go do a nonprofit somewhere, right? But when the guys come along and the guys are like, oh, we should start a kids fintech company, they're like, here are millions. You want more millions? I got more millions. Because they think men think about business and we just think about, hugging the kids, right? And so you're absolutely, that's right.
I think that we're talking about little money. So it's allowance, it's quarters, it's this thing, but there's no vision. There's no big idea that if you don't figure that stuff out, how are you ever going to figure out the million?
Yeah. How do you get, right. How do you make the progression?
But
Yeah.
it's totally discounted the vision and understanding the power of educating children. And
Totally.
it's a completely different conversation.
Well, listen, I think the joke's on them because I've just had a big aha moment, which is the cable industry, which you all know I worked in, right? Nickelodeon, et cetera. It has been disintermediated. We all know this, right? It's been disintermediated by the likes of Amazon and Netflix, right? But it was disintermediated not only by Amazon and Netflix, it was disintermediated by kids. You and I were not the ones who said, oh, we're not going to pay our $200 cable bill anymore because Amazon and Netflix are here. We didn't do that. We were used to paying that $200 cable bill. But guess what? Kids were like, wait, I just got out of my parents' house and I'm moving into an apartment. Somebody wants me to pay $200 a month for a cable bill? I'm not doing
No way.
that.
Yeah.
I'll stick with Amazon and Netflix. And guess what? Guess what's going to happen next? The same thing is going to happen in the banking industry. I guarantee you. If I get I told you the ages I'm getting the kids. I'm getting them at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, right? If I get every kid out there onto my platform, do we really think they're going to go back to a JP Morgan Chase by the time they hit 18? They're not. They're going to be on a digital platform. They're going to continue on digital platforms or grow with me in whatever way that we grow. And so it is really important. Oh,
lunch just arrived.
Exactly. So it is super important that we, teach them early. But the truth is, from a business perspective, we're going to have those consumers early. We're going to have them early, and we'll get them before any other bank or financial institution gets them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Actually, that's a fascinating concept. I mean, we've been talking about the financial services industries, the disruption of that industry for so long because it's so there. It needs a bit of a rethink. But anyway, that's Meg Sullivan's point of view. I hate to do this, but we're at the hour, so we're going to wrap up this conversation. Tanya, thank you so much for spending time with us. Marta, did you want to say something?
How do we send you a love note? You'll get us that.
Oh, you're lovely. Oh, it's easy. Tanya, Tanya, at goalsetter, GOALSETTER.co, not .com, .co.
And I bet Diane won't mind including that in a follow-up note from the session today. So if you didn't catch that, Tanya, if you're okay with that, we'll do that for sure. I was going to say, first of all, thank you for spending time with us, Tanya, because I think it's very enlightening. Not only is it thrilling to hear what you're working on, but also to challenge our own selves in terms of our own thoughts around financial literacy. So I feel like that was very useful in on multiple levels. So thank you. I'm going to just give a quick call to action because there were a couple nuggets in there that I really loved. I thought I would just ask us to think about. One is perhaps maybe we should be the instigators as one of our action items to have financial conversations with other women and children. Those would be the two, right? And communities. And I think we all run we're involved in both in some level or another. So perhaps we could take up that challenge to start that conversation, not only to educate ourselves, but to educate them. So, maybe we take that on as one of our big action items. The second thing that I think I loved, Tanya, was let's all get good financial advisors in our lives. Like that would be a really good thing. So to your point, Tanya, sharing, that's one part of a thing we could do for each other is sharing when we have advisors that really matter, that make a difference, we think. So I would challenge us all to really think about that, because it's really important. It's one of the things that allows women to stay behind men in terms of their own financial management, is because we don't know how to manage the money, so we don't. So that's kind of a crazy outcome. So anyway, love that. And the last one, I think I would just, the call to action, why don't we all go check out Goal Setter? Because I'm sure there's people in our world and lives and who would benefit from being a part of it, and sign up for it, because Tanya's doing some cool things and we ought to be a part of it, right?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.
So listen, Tanya, thanks again. Amazing session. Thanks for sharing all your thoughts and insights. It was really useful. And so great to see all of you. My big one last thing I wanted to mention is please get on your calendars that we have the How Forum, our big conference that we're now doing this year virtually on the 3rd and the 4th. We would love for you to participate and be a part of it. Diane, you'll be hearing a lot from Diane about the How Forum coming up. We have amazing programming planned, so we really look forward to having you all join. And if you haven't signed up for it, please do. And I think, Diane, that's kind of a wrap for us, right? Did I forget anything?
Nope, that's perfect. So
All right.
Tanya,
So great to see all of you. Tanya, thank you.